Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jamin Shively, broadcasting from Whidbey Island, Washington, and I want to welcome my colleague and co-host Michael, who's in Thailand. Michael, hey, how you doing out there in Thailand?
Doing well, Jamin. I'm so happy to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Likewise. All righty. Well, let's start with just a moment of silence for gratitude and for the sacred. All right. How you doing there, Michael?
Doing well.
Shall we start talking?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. You know, life is just such a miracle, and what a miracle that we've reached this moment, right? Which, you know, in a sense is sort of the cumulative of our entire lives and so many experiences and so much accumulated knowledge and wisdom, such as it is. You know, what a profound privilege and honor, you know, and to be able to use these tools to communicate with pretty much whoever we want. I mean, it's really a miracle upon miracles.
And if we don't, use our, position of privilege, what good are we for? What good is it to be privileged?
Yeah, exactly. And what's really fascinating about this moment is, you know, we've so far overshot in terms of population, in terms of technology, in terms of exploiting Mother Earth and her resources, what we call her resources, that, you know, we've so far overshot, but one of the manifestations of the overshoot is we have this just amazing information and communication technology infrastructure, which may only exist for a short while longer. But it's sort of this, you know, this apex of technology on top of the spurt of the biggest acceleration of destruction of the planet in the planet system.
It's kind of like, being asleep on the Titanic, right? And then waking up just as it's starting to sink.
That's a really good metaphor. Yeah. Or analogy.
Right? And it's like, you wake up and you look out and it's so beautiful. And then you're like, holy shit, the ship is going down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at the moment we reach this global consciousness and connectivity that we have right now. I mean, you're way out in Thailand, and in a few days you'll be in France, and we'll pick up again when you're in France without missing a beat, right? I mean, it's just miraculous, the point-to-point communication and the group communication when we have multi-country hangouts. And so it's just, I'm really, yeah, it is. But we only have this and have this connectivity at the moment that we get that the planet is really about to go over the cliff.
Yeah. It's like we have this one shot. All right.
Right.
It's blockbuster material.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. And I think one of the things that needs to happen is we need to create a movie about this. And, you know, let's do it as a collective intelligence. Whoever wants to get involved with the movie project, let's do it. But let's get on with the details of our shot, our one shot that we have, whatever window of time remains. According to Professor Guy McPherson, we're looking at months. You know, others estimate years. but less than a decade. Others estimate between a decade and two. No matter how you slice it, it's a very short window.
Yeah, even if we were to push the date way out, which we're not really in a position to do because we don't have the evidence for it. But even if we were to push it out to like, you know, a century, right, until like the I guess that would be the 22nd century, right? That is a blip, right? A tiny, you know, dot on the timeline of human history, not to mention the Earth's history or the universe's history. I mean, it's just, it's you know, even 100 years to turn the thing around, you know, not to mention like, you know, decades, years, or months.
Yeah, totally.
We're talking about a very, you know, foreshortened timeline.
Totally.
Window of opportunity, and that's what makes it a blockbuster, right? Because
the urgency.
The urgency.
No
and,
urgency.
You know,
no urgency.
You wake up, you know, and all of a sudden, you know, it's upon you.
Yeah.
You know, are you gonna live to see another night, right, or another fortnight, or another you know.
Totally.
Year or decade? Are your children going to grow up? Are their children going to grow up? You know, to see the world, right? And if so, what kind of world are they going to wake up to?
Totally. Is it going to be an ice-free world? No more polar bears, Daddy? You know, etc. You know, or is it a world that's a total hothouse that's simply uninhabitable and radioactive, right? Because of all of our radioactive or our nuclear blood.
Yeah, is it going to be like rich people like hunkered down in bunkers?
Right. So anyway, I'd like to kind of cut to the chase, and this is really, really radical thinking. But there's this amazing book. I don't know if you've heard of it, Michael, or if maybe we've even talked about it. But it's called Honeybee Democracy, right? And the author of the book, Thomas Seeley, is the head of the Department of Neurobiology at Cornell University. He's a professor of biology. He's also he's kept bees for eons. He's just studied bees first. And what he's done is he's drawn the parallels, amazing parallels between how honeybees think as a collective intelligence. In fact, one of the sections in the book, this book is all about collective intelligence, really.
Yeah.
And
a form of brainstorming.
Well, yeah, exactly. And with today's technology, you know, you got, you know, sophisticated video cameras tracking all the movements of the dances of the bees. Before, you know, biologists had to try to observe that themselves with their eyeballs. But anyway, with modern technology, we've really been able to map out exactly how they're communicating. And it is so closely parallel to how the cells in the brain work together as a swarm of cells. So at multiple levels, we're seeing collective intelligence. But one really salient point is that whereas for humans to organize collectively, we've got all this massive flexibility. We can create stories, you know, we can create social order, we can create culture, and, you know, so we've got gazillion degrees of freedom of flexibility. On the other hand, for the honeybees, you know, with their, you know, the number of neurons in a honeybee brain, you know, must measure in, you know, the millions at best, if not hundreds of thousands. I know for like a mosquito, it's like 20,000 neurons or something like that.
That explains it.
But it's, you know, it's a really small brain, basically, compared to the human brain, you know, duh, obviously.
Which is what, like billions?
No, trillions or something, right? I mean, cells in a human brain, I forget, but it's
yeah.
Anyway, well, or maybe it's billion, I don't know, whatever. But it's
whatever it's
orders of magnitude more. So the honeybees, the way that they work in total cooperation, absolute cooperation, but at the same time using their collective intelligence. So when it's time to find a new nesting site, for example, they will send out literally hundreds of scouts. And scouts that find a good site that's suitable, you know, a single scout can determine if a site is suitable based on its size and the degree to which it's protected and secluded and shaded and, you know, whatever elements they're looking for. that scout will come back to the hive and start doing a dance. And to the extent that the bee is excited about this, that it's a really good site, they'll do a really energetic dance, and they'll do it for a long period of time. And so that has a cascading effect, because then other scouts go out to the site that they point to, both in terms of angle and in terms of distance and other characteristics. And then so there's this cumulative effect where each bee is essentially acting like a cell in the brain. And
yeah, well, they're not exactly the most like democratic of species. It's kind of like democracy and fascism.
Exactly. But the thing is, there's never any conflict amongst the bees. They may, essentially argue for one side or another, but they don't like have it out physically. They
sending out different signals. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't spread bad, nasty rumors about the bee that's promoting one side over another. There's this very fluid.
This is what I see. This is what I see. This is what I see. It's all like you and your point of view. You and what you're experiencing, what you're seeing. You just communicate it, and it just becomes a part of the collective.
Exactly, and then it influences other scouts to go check it out, and then they come back and render their own personal opinion about the site. So it's not like they're saying thumbs up to whatever he said. No, they're doing their own dance with whatever degree of passion and duration they want to give a massive so it's like degrees of thumbs up for a given site. But anyway, the bottom line is there's a lot of bottom lines, but one is that they are programmed to operate this way. It's not like they learned how to do this. So they're genetically hardwired to operate as a colony in an extremely symbiotic way, right? And that's another bottom line, is it's extremely symbiotic as opposed to humanity. We're destructive towards each other, and we're destructive towards Mother Earth. The pollinators, the honeybees, are just the opposite, right? They're symbiotic. They're vital, right? They're absolutely vital for pollination and other biological functions. And so
we're symbiotic too.
Well, we could be.
by nature.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing: our symbiosis only is often limited either to the family or to the family business or to the family plus, the company that I work for. But so we form these kind of tribes, right?
I mean, imagine bees given the opportunity to take over the planet Earth, right? There's no reason to suppose that they would stop at that before that point, right? We haven't stopped at that point either, but at least we're asking the ethical questions as to whether we ought to.
Well, here's the point I want to get to, Michael, is that the path that we're on as humanity is so clearly destructive that, and we're so close to the edge of the cliff, whether months or years or decades, who cares? But we're so close to the edge of the cliff, and we're barreling down. What I'm saying is that our impact on Mother Earth, provoking the sixth mass extinction and causing accelerated abrupt climate change, all of this is evidence that our dominion over Mother Earth has been an abject failure, just a complete failure. And so I posit that, and we've talked about this before, that our whole modality of life, characterized by separation and domination of each other, with slavery as an extreme, and then domination of Mother Earth, with modern agriculture and mining and fracking as an extreme, that our whole modality, characterized by separation and dominance, has been an utter catastrophe. And so I assume you agree with me on that. But
yeah, we're as my older brother says, we're just out of the swamp.
Just out of the swamp, right? And so, my fundamental thesis that I want to put forward is that we need to completely and radically transform our fundamental modality of life from a modality of separation and greed and hoarding and fear and dominance, and spending our whole lives making sure we don't get dominated, right, by getting advanced degrees and whatnot, and working our way into whatever niche in the economy we can defend, right, precisely so that we don't get dominated. Um,
Yeah, well, that niche wouldn't be such a bad thing, right? If it were somehow as coordinated as, a beehive.
exactly. All these bees, different bees have different niches, and some are farmers, and some are scouts, and some are drones, and whatever. Um, but they each have a niche, but it's a niche within a highly symbiotic, cooperative, collaborative whole where there is no competition. Literally, there is no conflict. There is no
There's
violence.
no, yeah, there's no ego. There's
Yeah,
no bee ego.
that's right.
To be or not to be,
To
Jamin,
be
that
or
is
not
the
to
question.
be. Exactly. That's the question. To be or not to
To
be.
be or not to be
No,
a bee.
I love it. I really love it because that really is the question. And where we're now creating a new kind of variation on the meaning of the word be. We're turning it into a verb, right? The
Yeah,
verb
to be or not to be a bee. BEE.
No, to be or not
Uh,
to be. That is the question.
yeah, to be or not to be, BEE. I my inclination is to say that actually we're, and I imagine that this is uh, along the lines of the argument of the author of that book, that actually we are be like, right? But that we've repressed that be like nature, all right?
That's
In other
it.
words, our
That's it.
our our social being,
Yeah. Yeah.
being, right?
That's it. Being. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, our social being, because uh, we're social by nature from the ground up, right? We get our identities from society, our roles, our whole notion of success, right?
Mm.
And so it's not as though human nature is not social. It is highly social, um, but because of our success, because of our dominance,
Yeah.
right? Um, not only over one another, right, but over not only economically but ecologically.
Yeah.
Uh, we in order to take survival to the next level, in other words, in order to continue to survive,
Yeah.
uh, we need to come to terms with that.
Well, exactly. In fact, I would call our biological success. I would say that it's biological success much more like a cancer in a human body has biological success in that it grows and grows and grows and takes over and thoroughly dominates the host and continues to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow until it takes over the whole body. But it's only short-term success because then as the host dies, so does the cancer. It's not like the cancer oozes out of the body and goes and finds a new host. No, the cancer cells die. The whole host and cancer cells die. So we have apparent biological success given our massive numbers and our combined weight and all that compared to any other species, certainly any other animal. But it is a Shakespearean tragedy, and what looks like success for a moment becomes, oh my goodness, we're going over the edge of the cliff. So, to be or not to be really is the question. Can we transform? And if so, what do we transform to? What would it look like for all of humanity? Let's just take it to an extreme. What would it look? Because I think that's really what it's going to take. I mean, we've got to do away with nationalism, right? My country versus your country, America first, and climate change is a Chinese hoax. That all stems from nationalism and nations competing with each other across multiple lines of
Yeah,
competition.
and it is deeply embedded in uh, the old, as we've said before, Jamin, the mode of production that arose, during the Industrial Revolution, right? Moving to a mode of capitalism that was also the birth of nationalism at the same
Mm,
time,
mm,
right? The wealth of nations,
mm,
right? According to Adam Smith.
mm.
Um, we need to see that for what it is, as a transitional, phase or period in human history,
Mm,
right? And
totally.
if we look at a very strictly Darwinian model of various ecologies. Uh, Certain species fare better than others in large part because of the changing environment. So it's rather natural, right? It's not just that one species necessarily figures it out, but that the environment changes in such a way that it is beneficial to them.
Yeah.
But in our case, in the case of humans, we've reached this very interesting moment in ecological history, to call it that, where the species itself takes stock of the changing environment consciously,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then adjusts itself accordingly.
It,
Right?
exactly. And to make the parallel, I'm sorry, am I interrupting?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. No, really good points. In fact, the parallels with the bee colonies are really profound because, I mean, could you imagine a single bee sitting in the hive, scratching the side of its black and yellow stripes, becoming a philosopher of bees and deeply understanding the philosophy of the underlying operating system that is programmed to all of these bees? No, they don't, but that's what's happening on the human plane, right?
Yeah.
Some of the bees, some of the humans are stopping, we're scratching, and we're observing our own operating system and analyzing it critically.
And we're analyzing all of the ecosystems.
Yeah.
And we're saying, some of us are saying, holy shit.
Exactly.
It's time to evolve.
Exactly. And it's time to radically transform our very modality, our very operating system, right? From one of separation, hoarding, ego, fear, scarcity, and this notion that we can slice and dice and exploit Mother Earth in her various parts. Imagine that giving way to a whole new operating system. And then, of course, we've got a lot of conversations are going to need to be spawned around this. And we're going to use Radish for that to shepherd along these conversations, radish.org. But some of the conversations will be around, well, how on earth do you make this transition, for example, right? And so we'll talk about that. But even before then, let's have the conversation. Okay, what do we want to, what would be kind of the ideal modality, the new operating system? And I'd like to do a screen share and kind of sketch out sort of a visual of all this, if I may. Is this a good moment for that for you, Michael?
Awesome.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right. So presenting to everyone. Boom. All right. So can you see the tablet there?
Yes.
All right. So starting with the most superficial, right at the top, I would call this layer of kind of our modality or culture, our current set of living arrangements.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. What we're doing, how we move ourselves around, what we do at work, what we do at home, our current set of conversations. What are we talking about? Right. And of course, our current, set of thoughts. What are we thinking about? What are we praying about, praying for? What are we wishing for? What are our dreams, etc. Right?
Yeah, and clearly we're talking about a set of reinforcing, processes.
Yeah. These are all interrelated. They all, impact one another. And
the stories we tell ourselves about why the way things are the way they are.
Exactly. Exactly. Absolutely. All kinds of stories, conflicting stories, fake news, what you name it. So all of that's currently going on. That's just kind of like the headlines of the day, right? And those have changed quite a bit in the last 20 years. That's actually very notable, a very notable point. If we root down one layer below that, I would call this just kind of like culture, for lack of a better word. And another foundational layer is the economy. And while and of course there's this dialectic between the two layers, but culture and economy are kind of like, this is sort of the culture that we've inherited, the kind of, I don't know, more like kind of more the foundational culture, right?
Well, I would say that the top layer there
Yeah.
is culture, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Very, very good.
And then economy is underlying that, because it's like we do what we need to survive, and then we tell ourselves stories, true or false, to substantiate that, to sort of, you know, say why it is and why it's okay.
Yeah.
Because you know, we have a hard time living with the cognitive, you know, dissonance of the fact that we're hoarding over others.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I would just call that top layer, you
Culture.
know, culture.
Culture. Fair enough.
All of that, and the economy really underlies it. And underneath the economy, I would posit, is you have the ecology. You have ecology.
Well, actually, yes, but in between ecology and economy, if I may, I would insert another layer, which I call the modality of life, kind of this hidden layer. And that modality of life includes these fundamental elements of separation, that we're separate from each other and separate from nature, and that this separation is of a nature itself, is itself of a nature that it includes or promotes, or at a minimum supports domination over nature, domination over other people. Now, this modality is largely, but not entirely, given by ecology. And
Yeah.
let's look at some examples. Like take for example, you know, often, you know, the extreme north, you have, for example, the Eskimo communities, right? And their modality of life is largely given by, you know, the very special characteristics of their ecology, right? You with me, Michael?
Yeah. I really like where you're going with this. I personally would put economy between ecology in modality of life, because
Okay.
I think that, or I would say that they're synonymous either way.
Sure, sure, sure. Oh,
Because
definitely.
it's not as though the economy somehow arises out of the modality, as though you had some, as though the modality of life, right, had some like direct relationship with the ecology. That's
Yeah.
all mediated economically.
Right, right, right. Yeah. No, no, absolutely. So let's just kind of put a gentle, you know, circle around both of those layers and let that be kind of one layer. But back to the point here, like, so Eskimo, the very special characteristics of the ecology determine, you know, basically the economy, the modality on the economy. And then, you know, and then think of like populations that live in very desert climates, right? You know, for them, this idea of carving up the land, and this is my chunk of land and that's yours, that would be totally laughable for them, because they need to go where the animals are herding. They need to go where the water is. They need to grow where the plants have just grown and flowered and all that. They need to move. The idea of squatting on a few acres of land would be just laughable to them. So the ecology very much gives us modality and economy. But the really fundamental thing is, you know, just as we see in the diversity of examples, you know, of all these different diverse communities around the world, it doesn't have to be any one way or any other one way, right? We've got a lot of flexibility, and that's where I think we need to start to learn some lessons from the pollinators, right, and other, you know, animal and plant, and there's just so many lessons we need to learn from nature, that to learn how we can operate in a much more cooperative and benevolent, beneficial to Mother Earth, where we're actually become a part of Mother Earth, very much like the honeybees are symbiotic and supportive of life, as opposed to us destroying life. So that I'm going to go to video for a moment, just so we can see each other. And by the way, I can't see your video stream. That's okay if you don't want to be seen, but I just wanted to make sure you knew that I couldn't see your video.
Well, I'm a bit camera shy, Damon.
Okay. Anyway,
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Continue on, please.
okay. So now imagine that, you know, if we can open up our minds to the point that we can imagine a fundamental new modality slash economy slash mode of production, that'll of course give rise to a whole new culture for humanity, a culture of, you know, much less of the individual, and that it's, you know, okay to step on others to get ahead. In this new culture, we would literally disappear any notion of stepping on others, right? That would just,
and
you know.
I think at this point, in the narrative, right, the story that we tell ourselves and others, it's a good time to point out, you know, in terms of more recent human history, relatively recent, you know, the shift from a feudalistic to a capitalistic society, right? Because you know, I think so many of us kind of look at capitalism, right, as somehow like an expression of human nature, right? Whereas it's actually a historical, you know, shift from one set of living arrangements, one mode of economy or whatever we want to call it, to another. In that, in terms of the feudalistic, the capitalistic was quite unpredictable and even unimaginable, right, by most of the people, right, the participants in that mode of production. You know, capitalism, it's kind of like, oh, with capitalism, we somehow like arrived at the destination, right? Well,
Yeah.
why would we be so presumptuous to say that when in fact capitalism has been around for a lot less time than feudalism, and way less time, right, than this agrarian mode of production, you know, that came with the the Neolithic Revolution.
And which in turn was around for way less time than hunter-gatherer existence. So
Exactly.
the vast majority of the time that we spend,
Yeah.
and then also the capitalist system is of course notorious for having destroyed Mother Earth, in a way that the other modes of production simply could not accomplish. So
they were much less efficient.
Right, at destroying Mother Earth. Not that they weren't harmful; they were just much less efficient and much less effective at destroying life on Earth. So capitalism.
I just think that at this point in the story, it's a good time to say, hey, look, let's actually zoom in to these more recent developments in human history.
Yeah.
Show that they're not actually that, you know, they don't have a lot of longevity, and that in fact, there's no reason to suspect that both capitalism and nationalism that grew up with it are somehow like, you know, the ultimate expressions of human nature.
Yeah, totally. I'm sorry for cutting in.
Yeah, just in terms of the story that we're telling.
Yeah, totally. I'd say that the story that we're telling to the masses, but to be very frank about our audience for this video, I think that our audience for this video is quite sophisticated, and they basically get it, right? So I just kind of want to bookmark that, come back to it later, maybe even on a separate video, this kind of telling the broader story for the masses. But for this video, I'd really like to cut to the chase, because I think there's a really interesting couple of chases that we need to get on right now. And that'll become apparent as we. But you follow me? Does that make sense, Michael? Or do you? But you know, feel free to stand your ground if you.
Well, yes and no. I mean, on the one hand, I think so many of us, including the two of us, have bought into capitalism in a number of ways. I think it's kind of hard for us not to, you know, take that for granted, given that that's the world we're born into, right? It's not some historical artifact that we're kind of like hearkening back to, right? It's our present reality.
Yeah, yeah. The point I was making is that our audience really gets how broken it is. I think for the most part, that they really get that, right? But I think for our messaging for a much broader audience, I think there we really need to delve into that point.
Yeah, well, let's continue on and see what we have to say.
Okay, awesome. So what I have to say, building from there, is that we so obviously need to create and urgently need to create a new modality. But that new modality and the new economy that'll come with it, and the new set of living arrangements that'll come with that, um, are going to be so radically different and are going to need to work together and to take into consideration so many factors, including global dimming and the imperative to refreeze the Arctic and employ other forms of geoshading to clean the oceans, et cetera, all the stuff we need to do, that that it's going to require no less than collective intelligence. I mean, I don't think any single philosopher or sociologist is going to be able to just sit down and map it out and just say, here's my thesis. Here's what life needs to be. Here's the new modality of life that needs to happen.
And by definition.
By definition.
Yeah, by definition, because otherwise collective intelligence wouldn't be collective intelligence.
Oh, no. What I'm saying is, it's going to take collective intelligence to design the new modality, right?
Yeah. And I would say that even those like radical examples of things that need to be done are actually not really that radical, right? If we talk about, geoshading and stuff like that, right? Those are things that we could very easily conceive of as being a part of the capitalistic mode of production, right? Those are the kinds of things that we can just imagine as being like technological innovations that we implement.
Totally.
So in a sense, those are much more superficial than the radical, I'll just say, a revolution or transformation, right, of the economy, et cetera, that needs to happen.
Exactly, and this was exactly my point in breaking out the various different layers, is to show, look, a lot of people these days talk about, oh, we need to change this and this and this, we need to implement more solar, we need to transport ourselves around in electric cars instead of gas guzzlers, yada yada yada. A lot of that is that most of that is at the very superficial layer of modern culture, living arrangements, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, they're just like next generation technology.
Right, but what we're arguing for is a much deeper, more radical transformation in the very modality of life itself.
Exactly.
Right, and the very mode of production of our economy. What is our economy here for? It's no longer to fulfill on the American dream.
But it's in a sense, in a certain very important and primary sense, it's a return to a modality of life, right, or a mode of production or whatever, that's very that's in harmony with the ecology itself, right? Living in harmony with nature.
That's the key.
But not in kind of a primitive sense, right? In a very sophisticated sense.
Yeah, exactly. And so that then takes us to a conversation about, and this goes back to the video we published, I think a week ago or so, where we said, look, we're currently on this path, right? I think it was episode 1 in this series. If we make this video episode 2 of the Radish Singularity. Anyway, so we talked about, this is the current path that we're on. We're about to go over the edge of the cliff. We can imagine a bunch of different paths. And, this thick blue line really represents the optimal path amongst all of those. That's also physically possible, right? Because we have to stay within the constraint of what's physically possible.
Yeah, and the optimally possible pathway.
The optimally possible path, exactly. Let's say it's this blue one right here. The optimally possible path. And to get on, and so we could think of this path. So it's not like an instantaneous phase transition like Ice 9 in Kurt Vonnegut's Cat's Cradle. It's not an instantaneous phase transition, but it's more like an evolution, where these little black lines that I'm drawing are sort of like different stages in the evolution towards, towards this more be-like, perfect utopia, if you will. And, and we're, of course, constrained by the fact that we're going to be largely going over the cliff as we go down this path. So it's literally like essentially repairing the 747 jet as it crash lands. If you can imagine that, it's kind of a crazy concept. And a lot of the feedback we get are people telling us, hey, this is all impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible. But I continuously go back to my kind of big thesis that this whole new pathway in turn, and the transition off of the current path onto the new path, this whole thing, both the design of the new path, the design of the be-like utopia, the design of the off-ramp, the design of all the levers that we can throw in order to push us onto this new path, all of that will be the product of radical collective intelligence. This massive,
and I would say to the naysayers here that argument doesn't hold any water, because by definition we're defining the optimal in terms of what's possible. So to say it's impossible is kind of a moot point.
Exactly. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Brilliant point. Thank you. Thank you. We're talking about within the realm of what's possible, right? And we're simply first acknowledging that we've got some choice here, right?
Yeah. If the pathway were like, a straight path to utopia, then okay, fine. We could say that that's impossible because there are some trade-offs.
Yes.
Or whatever, choices to be made. But here we're simply saying, okay, within the realm of the possible, what is optimal?
That's right. Exactly.
Duh.
Yeah. And we're acknowledging that different choices will take us on different paths. Therefore, there's a spectrum of paths. We can take this path, that path, this other path. Let's identify the optimal within that which is possible and go for that. Right? And actually, radical collective intelligence, I would posit, expands the realm of possibility, because radical collective intelligence can make radical leaps forward in technology, whether it's solar technology, geoshading technology, technology for cleaning the ocean, even technology for sequestering carbon. And one I'll point to is holistic land management, as expounded and exposed by Alan Savory and the Savory Institute.
Yeah. And it gives us a more, frankly, realistic picture of what is possible, right? Because at this point, we don't really know.
Exactly. Because a very important subset of radical collective intelligence is the global holistic model, right? And where we model out the entire world and all the different forcings and feedbacks and self-reinforcing feedback loops and all that good stuff. And so anyway, so at this point, I want to kind of radically shift gears in the conversation, and kind of leave all this kind of fuzzy philosophical collective intelligence-y, path of life and all this stuff. Because this is largely an intellectual exercise until we get to the phase of action. And so that's really what I want to talk about next, is the phase of action. And so, and because the bottom line is that all of these intellectual conversations are happening far too slowly in order for us to make meaningful progress on a timescale of months. And we need to refreeze the Arctic on a timescale of months. We need to have a solid plan, not just designed, but implemented by, I don't know, early summer. So we've got, maximum 3 months to get a really solid start on this. So we need action. So what kind of action is going to, bring together the collective intelligence? The really key missing step here at this point is the consummation of this dream of radical collective intelligence that we've been nursing along for a few years now. We actually need to make it a reality. To make it a reality, a lot of people need to hear about it, need to talk about it, need to scratch their heads, need to watch videos such as these and others, and basically say, okay, I'm going to give this a try, right? So we basically need a radical transformation in culture, you know, way up here, in a sense, to precede. So a radical transformation in culture, at least by, you know, a subset of us, maybe, you know, it could be a very small fraction of us. But I mean, as soon as we have even hundreds of us actively participating in radical collective intelligence, then we'll actually be able to make some meaningful progress at, you know, going from hundreds to thousands, and then thousands to tens of thousands. And I'll just show these slides that I love to show up here. The evolution of radical collective intelligence. First, there's going to be a platform like the one that we're about to launch over the next few weeks on radish.org. That platform will support, so that's a platform for radical collective intelligence. That in turn will support the actual collective intelligence that grows on top of that platform. And as more and more people join, that actual intelligence will grow and grow and grow until it sort of maxes out relative to the platform. That's one of the constraints. And one of the things of many that we'll do with this radical collective intelligence is we'll use it to build, drum roll. Can you guess what I'm going to say next, Michael? The next generation of the platform. A much deeper, broader platform with so much more functionality and use of information and communication technologies to empower the growth of a much bigger collective intelligence. Even with the same number of members, with a better platform, they can have a much more expanded collective intelligence. So it's not that it's always a function of needing to grow and grow and grow. We may have all the human intelligence component we need when we have a few tens of thousands of us. But anyway, but this evolution, regardless of how many members we have, there will be a constant evolution in the platform that regardless of how many members we have, it will make those members that much more intelligent. So this essentially becomes part of this new operating system. So radical collective intelligence becomes a vital part of the operating system of the new be-like modality of life on Earth. That's actually really profound, right? In a sense, radical collective intelligence becomes the brain of this new operating system, plus humanity participating with it, right? The two go together.
You're going to look carried away, Jamie. Come on.
Maybe, but not too far. But anyway, but seriously, the new operating system that we need to create for humanity to go to being be-like, it's got to be so powerful, so efficient, and so seductive, right? We're talking about, you know, something truly phenomenal that needs to be created, that it's going to take a bunch.
I imagine that at that point, even the B paradigm will become outdated or outmoded, right? Because the B paradigm can only take us so far.
No, of course. We're just using it as a rough metaphor. Yeah.
A state of affairs or living arrangements, right, in which the individual itself finds fulfillment in collective problem solving.
Amen.
Right? Collective progress.
That's the essence. That becomes the new, you know, key.
But not at the expense of the individual, but precisely at the enhancement of the fulfillment.
Exactly.
Of individual desires.
The fulfillment of the individual becomes giving themselves to the whole community, to the whole world, to Mother Earth, and all of her.
And in a way that matters. And that's part of the puzzle that needs to be solved, right, by RCI.
Exactly. And you see, RCI, it needs to both put together a whole new game board, right, for us to play on, with whole new terrain and rules and, you know, who knows what, you know. But it also needs to continually optimize for, what should I be doing right now? Right? Where am I most needed? See, I have certain skills and certain knowledge and network and influence and whatnot. So
and you want them to be utilized, and you want to be acknowledged for them.
That's right. And so rather
And
than
that's not happening for the by and large. That's not happening for the most
thank
part.
you. Thank you. And so, in a way it looked for a few centuries there, it looked like Adam Smith style capitalism with the invisible hand might be precisely that which was guiding us towards maximal prosperity. It probably guided us towards maximal growth of this artificial and deadly composite called, gross national product times all across all countries
Yeah.
in the world. So it maximized for that kind of growth, but that was cancerous growth. It turned out.
And to your point, Jamin, and in defense of Adam Smith, right? You speak of GDP, right, as a measure of success. That was precisely his point, right? He never said, in the Wealth of Nations, right? Just look at the title of the book, that it was going to be about individual fulfillment.
Totally, that's right.
Right.
It's the wealth of nations, not the wealth of individuals. And but anyway,
Yeah, it was a nationalistic dream.
right, right. And anyway, it's clear. It's clearly that was a key part of this whole the architecting of the cancer that ultimately took over our planet and is now threatens us with extinction, imminent extinction, if we don't
Yeah.
somehow come out of it and get on a new path.
And one that, frankly, radical collective intelligence is perfectly positioned to, well, I don't want to say exploit, right? But it's as though there's all of this unused human capital, right? Individual aspirations, aptitudes,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That are absurdly underutilized,
totally,
right?
totally.
Which is precisely why they're going to be motivated by such a platform, because finally there's an outlet, right, for they can give individual expression to it.
Exactly, exactly.
Whatever it is that they have to offer, you get off the job, you're done delivering the mail or whatever it is, right? And maybe you put the kids to bed or whatever, right? And it's kind of like, okay, I can either like log in and play another few hours of the World of Warcraft, right? Or I can log into Radish, radical collective intelligence, um, and make my mark in the real world, right? So we're essentially saying you not only you, but um, your abilities, your intellectual contributions or whatever are not only welcome here, but are much needed, valued, and they will be built upon by yet others, right? It's just the platform itself represents fulfillment, right, for the individual in the name of the collective.
Exactly, exactly. And I would even say to those who think that it's pointless, it's hopeless, we're all going to be dead in a few months or a few years at best or whatever, is in the face of all this death and destruction, why don't we do one last beautiful mission of coming together, using all of our intelligence to come together, and if we only get so far as envisioning and really having a clear picture of the utopia that could be if only we had more time, right? And if we only hold that vision collectively for a few moments before the mosquito of humanity goes splat on the windshield of the Mack truck of abrupt climate change, well, hey, let's achieve those moments anyway, right? And then what gets really exciting is when we achieve those moments of this vision of how it could be, right? Even if we're almost at the edge of the cliff at that moment, that should give us collective inspiration to pull off a collective MacGyver of jumping out of the collective window, doing a collective MacGyver roll, saving some fraction of life on Earth, however small, and using that as the crystal, the seed that then, goes forward. And we somehow preserve the vision of this utopia that we've come to in those moments of rapture. to help guide whatever life goes forward from that point. Anyway, I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
well, yeah, well, I mean, just look at Star Wars, right? Episode 4, I guess, right, which is the original one. How many of those pilots, died, right, before they blew up the Death Star, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah,
at the same time, it's like they were clearly they went down fighting. They were heroes, and at the end of the day, they didn't know what happened in the end, right?
right,
But
exactly.
they knew what they were doing was right.
That's it. That's the key point. And in that beautiful story of Star Wars Episode 4, the original, the right prevailed, the good prevailed, and it was thanks to all their efforts.
And why do we love that movie? Right?
Yeah, yeah, it's because it's good. It's good defeating evil. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and Han Solo, all right, like so many other solos out there, like maybe you and me, right? At first, perhaps we were reluctant to join the fight because, hey, why go down fighting when I could just, retire?
exactly. Like to go down fighting, that's suicide, right? But what kind of world are you going to live into?
What kind of world are you going to live in?
That's right.
And what kind of life are you going to live? Especially in the face of, existential, death and destruction. It's going to become increasingly clear as we get closer to the precipice.
Exactly. So my plea to my fellow brothers and sisters, fellow humans on Mother Earth, is let's come together and see what happens when we come together and deliberate together and co-create together. Let's see what happens. Right?
Yeah. Aren't we curious to know what would happen?
Don't
we want to know?
Totally. Aren't you at least curious to know what on earth would happen? We've got these big sort of utopian visions. Oh, let's find the best possible path and define that collectively. And, and that may come to pass. It may not. Something totally different may come to pass when we all come together and start deliberating together. But let's at least give it a shot. Let's find out.
Yeah. Don't you want to know? Right. It's kind of like, it's the blockbuster of the millennia.
It really is. And I would say it's kind of tantamount in importance to the moment that, language began on planet Earth among humans. Okay. So just imagine there's this moment that we're all just kind of grunting and eating and, bonking. And, we're just kind of doing our instinctual stuff, but not using language yet. Now, imagine there's a group of us huddled around a campfire, and you, Michael, you're walking by one evening, right? And I and this other group, we're all kind of like arm wrestling or whatever physical stuff we do. And then suddenly we start talking and grunting and motioning about language. And clearly this is the moment when language is about to be born. And I kind of motion to you, like, come here and join this moment, Michael, where language is about to be born. Do you want to miss out on being part of that conversation, that moment when language is born? So when I go, right, to you, to Michael, let's say that's pre-language. It's just a, grunt of just get closer, Are you going to say no to the opportunity to participate in the creation of language? Anyway, that was whatever, hundreds of thousands of years ago or whatever it was. But now in this moment, this is the new language, the operating system language of a united humanity, a unified humanity, right? And as I sing in the song Rapidito, that I sing in my Darth Vader routine, which I'll be doing later this week, Rapidito. Quiero ver bailar tu vida, quiero estar contigo. Que le enseñes a tu amigo tus dolores más pesaditos. Déjame sobrepasar tus zonas de peligro hasta provocar los gritos de un mundo sano y unido. So the last words go, let me surpass your danger zones until we provoke the screams of a world that is united and whole. The screams of the massgasm, the cybergasm, whatever you want to call the gasm.
I couldn't have said better myself.
Thank you. So come participate in the massgasm. Come together. Come as you are. Come as
come. But no pun intended.
But come. That's it. That's the point. Come. Oh my goodness. Okay. I promised action. So let's talk action, right? How you doing there, Michael? You ready for me to plow ahead, or do you need a break?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
My iPad's running quite low, but I have a backup battery. If I need it, I can go fetch it.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't I let you do that, and I'll take a moment and take a deep breath. Let's just take. You think I want to take like a 5-minute break?
Yeah.
Let's take a 5-minute break. Let's take 5. All right.
Okay.
Audience, we'll see you back in 5.
See you in 5. Yeah.
I'm ready to come. Okay. See you in a few. Thanks, Michael.
I'm back. Just to let you know.
Oh, thank you, Michael, and my apologies to you and to everyone for being 5 minutes late myself. Yeah, I had to help out. Had to help out a neighbor.
Amen.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Okay. Awesome. All right. So let's talk for a moment about that there's really kind of two different phases to our work, two different parts. One is the radical collective intelligence part, both building the platform and then building the intelligence, the actual collective intelligence on top of the platform, right? As we saw.
And I think that is a salient point that you keep making.
But that's a salient point about the distinction between the platform and
yes.
Yes,
because the collective intelligence itself is not to be confused with the platform upon which it, not to say that it's independent. It is dependent, right? But it's not the platform itself. It's it's not the artificial intelligence, right? It's the human intelligence coming together with the artificial intelligence on a platform with the telos.
Right. But what's fascinating is with the advent of artificial intelligence and the exponential growth of artificial intelligence, and the fact that artificial intelligence is an integral part of the platform,
yes.
There is actual intelligence in the platform. And then there's also actual,
yes.
And then also consider all the memory banks of the platform. Yeah. Right?
It's dependent upon it, but it's not the same thing.
That's right. But in a sense, it is the same thing because all the memory banks plus the AI they're part of the platform now. I consider them part of the platform.
They're part of the they're part of the platform. But if the party doesn't come, right? If the people don't come to the party, it's not a party. If you plan the party.
As the platform grows, people will have partied on the platform for, months, let's say. At a given snapshot, the platform includes all of the memories, aka all of the recordings of all of those conversations.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just saying the platform itself actually becomes intelligent. It's the human intelligence is sort of like, the dynamic boundary layer that keeps pushing into new realms of conversation, possibility, etc. But at some point,
and frankly, the motor, the driver.
Absolutely. Now, at some point, per Ray Kurzweil's predictions and others' predictions, the artificial intelligence will grow to such a point that it'll actually surpass the intelligence and even creativity of a human being,
and of a human being.
Of a human being. And so, but look, the reality is there will constantly be this dialectic and this dynamic between humanity and AI.
And that's what we're building a platform to make possible, right? I mean, think of a launching pad.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a launch, Elon Musk's rocket, right?
Yeah.
It takes a launching pad to get it into orbit.
Let me put it in other terms. AI has been used to successfully just dominate chess, and in fact, just in the last 12 to 24 months, I forget exactly when, this new technology came out that just crushed anything that had happened before. And so it has completely mastered chess. And now, of course, chess is a much more finite game. It's much more bounded with a limited set of rules and all that. But if you extrapolate the ability of artificial intelligence to master games generally, You can imagine it evolving from chess to, becoming
Yeah.
the winner in some massive multiplayer game, whatever. Now, what if you extend it to the massive multiplayer game called, Sim Earth?
Yeah, but let's face it, the
Yeah.
problems that we're collectively creating even AI to solve are precisely for you know not only for humanity but for life itself, right? In other words, we're giving it a telos that it's unable to give to itself. In other words, we're saying, look,
Oh
we
yeah,
want it, yeah.
totally.
We're the ones that say, hey, we have these needs, these wants, right? But anyway, this is a very philosophical conversation, which is a very
Right.
interesting one as well. There's no doubt about artificial intelligence having the capacity, the potential to surpass human intelligence, even in the aggregate. That said, it is that dialectic that gives it meaning, that makes it meaningful, right? That dialectic that not only makes it more intelligent in terms of its ability to solve problems, but makes it matter, so to speak.
Yeah, totally. So, viva la dialectic, viva la symbiosis between AI
Exactly.
and human intelligence.
And
We're not
it's
calling
that,
for the extermination of one in favor of the other.
and
We're,
it's that same symbiosis between the platform, right? Like I said, it's like a party. I can have a house and throw a house party, right? But if the people don't show up, not much of a party.
yeah,
So
exactly. It would be like flowers without bees. Bees, the pollinators are the ones who really sex it up and make it fun for everybody and produce a bunch of honey and intelligence and all kinds of great stuff. So,
yeah, it'd be like the money without the honey.
money without the honey. So anyway, so yeah, so the people are the honey. But anyway, bottom line, let's get on with the kind of the big narrative. As I was mentioning several minutes ago, there's really fundamentally two big things that we need to do, that we need to focus on. One is building out the whole collective intelligence part, the platform, the people, the community, the evolution, boom, 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 the exponential growth of it, all that. That's all. Let's call that the collective intelligence part. Radical collective intelligence is the particular flavor that we're espousing and promoting. But there could be others. Anyway, let's just call that the collective intelligence part. Now, just as I talked about even a few minutes before that and before the break, all these great conversations about collective intelligence and what could we do, what should we do, what ought we do, different paths, different possible futures, it's all still very intellectual, very conversational. So the other thing that we spend a lot of time on is the revolution itself, a revolution of compassion, totally nonviolent, in fact, explicitly anti-violence. And so this revolution, that's where it's boots on the street, and we're doing real things that have real impacts. And I just want to share about some of these that are helping to kind of, well, why tell them when you can show them? Let me just do a screen share and share what I got to share. Okay. So the first one is a press conference that President Vicente Fox and I and several other colleagues and partners put on in Seattle, Washington in May 2013, May 30th, 2013, with President Fox. I'll just play a couple few excerpts from this. Just so you get the point. But it pertains to ending prohibition of cannabis, legalizing cannabis, ending the drug war, and ending organized crime associated with drugs, ending the criminal drug cartels.
This better be good.
It is good.
All right. Welcome, everyone.
That's John Davis to my right.
Being here.
President
Before
Fox.
I introduce our distinguished guests, I would like to begin with a quote from the late astrophysicist Carl Sagan.
Who?
Carl Sagan.
The illegality of cannabis, outrageous. An impediment to full utilization of a plant which helps produce serenity and insight, sensitivity and fellowship, so desperately needed in this increasingly mad and dangerous world. Carl Sagan. But by making cannabis illegal, we have instead turned it into a tool for violence, exploited by criminals and organized crime, spanning many countries.
All right. And then, so I go on for about 7 or 8 minutes, and then I hand it over to and then I introduce President Fox. I just want you to hear what he says. Let's see. And I'll include the links in the description of this so people can see. Now I go for more like 5 minutes, and then I...
Of cannabis.
Da-da-da.
And measured, as my colleague John Davis will discuss. Next, it is my pleasure and profound honor to introduce to you a man who has dedicated his life to transforming his country and our world into a more peaceful, loving, and prosperous planet. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the first freely elected president of Mexico, Señor Presidente.
Congratulations for that decision. This state of Washington, has decided to lead a new path, a path to change the paradigm by legalizing medical and social use of cannabis. In Mexico, we welcome this initiative because the cost of the war in the case of Mexico is becoming unbearable. Too high for Mexico, Latin America, and the rest of the world. The impact in the economy, on income, on tourism, investment, loss of talent, and above all, loss of hope. And 80,000 kids dead.
Boom. This press conference made it all the way to President Obama's desk, who we don't know the exact details, but he certainly handed it off to Eric Holder and said, look, we need a response within 3 months, because just under 3 months, they always push things to the last minute when it's these hot political potatoes. But just a couple days shy of 3 months, we had a response. And it was that the Obama administration, the federal government, is allowing legalization to proceed under these 10 points, okay? So this kind of activism, this getting the message out through press conferences and other activism, as we'll look at in a few moments, is very, very effective. That press conference was front page lead story on the front page of the Seattle Times the very next morning. And it was just international news. It became a huge international story, especially in Mexico. The press conference was in Seattle, Washington, but the story went just crazy in Mexico and the rest of Latin America. And that became the beginning of a very successful 4-part tour. And I just want to give people a little more background on my whole, cannabis thing. But let me just pause to get any commentary you have, Michael, at the moment.
No comment.
Okay, so let me give a kind of a little more tour. And I've been using cannabis as a topic, as an issue, as a plant, as a drug, to use it as kind of like a can opener to open up these broader conversations that we have. So, for example, I had been working on models and strategies for how to end world hunger, including transforming agriculture and food distribution and all kinds of stuff. But one thing I couldn't get beyond is the need for a massive injection of capital, about $50 billion per year, rough ballpark, to end hunger. And along comes the legalization of cannabis in the state of Washington, which I didn't really play any kind of role in actually getting it legalized. But once the vote was about to happen, I sprang into action and created a brand based on my great-grandfather, Diego Pellicer, who was the largest grower of hemp in the world in the late 1800s, in the Victorian era. So I built a brand with some colleagues, with some friends, called Diego Pellicer. And we started getting all kinds of media coverage. People were fascinated with the story of this, former Microsoft executive becoming the Bill Gates of bud, as the Taiwanese christened me. And here I am back in New York on Fox News. Great interview on the street with Deborah Borchardt, interviewing me on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, where I announced the .bong era of legalized cannabis. And then when I brought in President Vicente Fox, the media just exploded. We just had media coming from everywhere, international, local, national. Again, it forced the hand of the Obama administration to allow legalization just of cannabis to proceed. Here we are with Wolf Blitzer, the day we did our big press conference. Then we went up to the San Juan Islands here in the state of Washington and had a really great convention symposium on the medical uses of cannabis. Here we are at the big press conference that I just played excerpts from. This photograph here in the upper right was the main story on the Seattle Times, front cover of the Seattle Times. We did 4 big events that summer, public events, culminating in this big one, this 3-day symposium in Mexico at the Presidential Library in the heart of the drug war, a symposium on, shattering prohibition and on the medical uses. Now, there were representatives from Uruguay, among many, many other countries, Holland, various countries of Latin America, Europe, many experts from the United States. But among them was Uruguay. Representatives from Uruguay were there. And within a few months, Uruguay took the lead and became the first country in the world to legalize cannabis. So anyway, that's a bit that I wanted to share on that. Now I want to jump over to a different slideshow where, let's see here. I just kind of want to talk about how this plays into a broader, how this has evolved into a broader story of transforming the economy. Because, see, I committed from the get-go to donate 100% of my profits from the cannabis industry to ending world hunger. So we then went from there, with your help, Michael, and those of others, evolved that into a whole new standard, CCC, where all profits from CCC companies go to ending hunger, and through funding such programs as the Community Cafe that we also piloted in parallel. Here we are in Rosamond, California, with a big community cafe to feed the whole town as an experiment. And it was such a success. Everyone loved it. They said, what a miracle, que milagro. So this is part of a broader strategy called the Hungerless Games, and where CCC companies fund the end of hunger through community cafes. That becomes a big story, stokes a global movement, and then everybody wants to buy CCC, right? Well, what's the first CCC company? Sato Hemp, led by our brother Takuya Sato, who leads the hemp industry in Japan, and he is the Hemperor of Japan. And we've both visited with the Hemperor on many wonderful occasions. In fact, there's just a great picture I got to show. This is a Radish retreat with the Hemperor and some of his team back in 2015. And so anyway, just an amazing organization. And with the Hemperor taking the lead. Now, what I want to do, this is this new thing I want to tell you about, Michael, that I haven't told you a whisper about, but it just hatched up in the last few days. As I've been doing my Darth Vader routine in the last year in the state of Washington, and I'll play a little excerpt of that in a minute. But as I've been doing that and taking on the criminal drug cartels, this kind of new strategy has started to formulate in my mind. And then there was also the issue of a challenge, and I want to choose my words very carefully here, but because this is a really active hot potato. Not only am I being threatened and attacked by a criminal drug cartel, threatening me and my family, but a local criminal organization has really cranked up the heat here locally as we've been trying to implement community cafes here in the Puget Sound area to feed the growing hungry population. A local criminal organization has started to threaten me and try to shake me down for big money. They're trying to cripple the effort and essentially run us out of town unless we come up with big. Pardon me?
Why?
Well, number one, I think it's a combination. Pardon me?
What's the motivation?
Well, I don't really know. I mean, one possibility is that they were sort of hired as kind of the local organization to help bring me down locally by some criminal drug cartels. That's one hypothesis. Another is that there are powers that be that don't want to see the hungry fed here locally. Another hypothesis, and it could be a combination of these factors, and another hypothesis is they're just greedy and want money, and they think that they can shake me down for big bucks because it's obviously going to take big bucks to fund the community cafes. So I'm just speculating. They haven't told me what their motivations are. They've just threatened me with serious physical violence that could include death, and they've demanded large amounts of money and continue to do so. So anyway, just as I've done my Darth Vader routine with the criminal drug cartels out of the state of Washington, I'm thinking of stepping up the heat on this one particular local criminal organization and doing a local thing that says organized crime out of, and then the particular city, which I hope nobody mentions on the air, because that would expose a bit more information than I'm comfortable exposing at the moment. But let me see here. Here, I just want to show a little image of what we've been doing on the front of taking on the criminal drug cartels. And then that'll provide at least a visual basis for what I want to do with this specific criminal organization, the local criminal organization that has been threatening me and my family with violence. Okay, so here I am with my mom. Here's Detective James Gilchrist, our retired DEA, and we're doing this demonstration outside of CannaCon. Criminal drug cartels out of the state of Washington. Well, imagine a similar sign that says that says organized crime out of, and then the specific city that I don't want anyone to mention, but use pretty much the same imagery. Go as Darth Vader, go to that city, and just announce publicly, not mention names of organizations or names of individuals, but just say, look, we've had enough. We've been blocked by implementing community cafes that we're very anxious to implement here in this city, right? To feed the hungry, to feed everyone, and to create community. See, because these become tangible steps in the direction of building this utopia, right? Where the foods that we use are raised in ways that are holistic toward Mother Earth, symbiotic with Mother Earth, nurturing of life and of the sequestering of carbon and the reversing of desertification and all those good things. And we feed people and nourish people and create community, right? So this is what we want to do all over the Puget Sound. We're being blocked. So what I want to do is then take a public stand and very much along the lines of, what we've been doing. And also here at the University of Washington, I do a lot of this stuff at the University of Washington. So the debate team invited me to a debate. Should the United States end prohibition of all drugs? And I just want to play a little excerpt of this. And I was joined by Detective Jamie Gilchrist as well. But actually, before I do that, let me just take a quick pause and say, hey, Michael, you got anything you'd like to add? Pardon?
No, go for it.
Okay, cool. All right. So I'll just play an excerpt of this.
Without further ado, I will pass the floor to Jamin, who will be giving the first constructive speech.
Great. And do I have access to the slides for that?
Yeah. I was just going to offer that this will be the format of the debate. So we're going to do 8-minute constructives, and then everyone will speak again for 4 minutes. Here's the clicker.
Okay, so I just click right.
There's Jamie Gilchrist right there.
Very good. So the first thing I want to talk about is...
I just want to mention, over 200 people showed up for this debate. It was huge. It was the most successful debate that the debate team had ever put on at the University of Washington.
It's a broader context for this entire conversation. How are we doing, Marcus, on audio? Is that good enough? Okay. The broader context is this. Everything we're going to talk about tonight, I'm going to put in a bucket or a basket that's called ending prohibition for the sake of, and there's all the usual suspects. All the human rights issues, all the environmental issues, the constitutionality of prohibition, it's unconstitutional, et cetera, et cetera. So let's put all that in a bucket called prohibition, right? Pros and cons. We'll be talking about all that. There's a much broader context, which if even 3 people in this room, of those who haven't spoken with me before, can guess what it is, I'd be surprised. The broader context is this. We are in the middle of an environmental crisis of absolutely epic proportions. It's called abrupt climate change. How many of you are familiar with the term abrupt climate change as distinct from climate change? Okay, this is a crisis within a crisis, is the fact that not a lot of people know about abrupt climate change. So what do the two have to do with each other? Well, first of all, abrupt climate change, we're in the middle of the 6th mass extinction. How many of y'all are aware of that? Okay, good, good. So the 6th mass extinction is getting worse. Abrupt climate change is accelerating exponentially. And the evidence for it is everywhere. It's just we haven't taken a moment to look at the forest for the trees, so let's take a moment, okay? Professor Guy McPherson is the world's leading authority on abrupt climate change and its impacts. He's Professor Emeritus, University of Arizona. He'll be my guest speaker at the Sierra Club dinners in March and April of this year in Berkeley, California. I'm program chair at the Sierra Club dinners. It's a volunteer role that I've had for a number of years. And there's a lot of great stuff on YouTube. So if you come away with one name from tonight, let it be Guy McPherson, and please check out his stuff. But the bottom line is this. We are on this red arrow path right now, a highway to hell on earth due to carbon emissions, destruction of the biosphere, poisoning of the oceans, melting of Arctic ice, melting of Greenland ice, destruction of Antarctica. All of this is taking us on a path of exponential heating and exponential dying of the biosphere. And since we are way up at the top of the food chain, we are Humpty Dumpty on the top of the food chain. And as the food chain collapses, we're set up for a major crash. So severe that Professor Guy McPherson gives us maximum 10 years before human extinction, given the path that we're on. So I propose to you that the most urgent thing we could possibly be discussing is finding an off-ramp from this highway to hell that we're on. This is like an asteroid coming towards planet Earth, but that we're not ready or willing to see, right? For a number of reasons. By the way, does this include Jamie Steinberg? Well, yeah, he'll help us in. Okay, great, thank you. So we need to find an off-ramp from this highway to hell with Absolute urgency. There is nothing more urgent than that. Okay? And as I mentioned, most of us are not ready or willing to see the reality of this asteroid coming toward us. There are a lot of good reasons for that beyond the scope of this 8 minutes. But the bottom line is this. We primates called human beings, we're not built to understand big planetary things, much less take action towards them, right? What are we built to respond to? We are built to respond to a number of things, sex, food, hunger, thirst, things like that. But things that will actually organize us to take some positive action in a collective direction with urgency. The top of the list is this. I'm going to say it in caveman terms.
Jamie, the enemy tribe coming to kill us and steal our women. Let's get them.
Right? That motivates us into action, collective action. Okay, I didn't write the rules, but I am playing to win. Win at what? The game of survival. So, if that motivates us, we need an enemy tribe. We need an enemy tribe to go get. How about criminal drug cartels? They've killed hundreds of thousands of people. They do human trafficking. They literally steal our women. And they're killing us with their dangerous drugs and their business practices. And as Detective Gilchrist will tell you, there is a very easy path towards getting rid of criminal drug cartels. I'll leave that to him. Here's where I'm going from there. Once we follow that path and get rid of the criminal drug cartels, we will amass massive political capital and social capital. We'll cash that in to expand the mandate to ridding the world of all forms of organized crime. That's a whole other trajectory. That'll get us even more political capital and social capital. We cash that in to expand the mandate one more time to include organized crimes against Mother Earth herself. Organized crimes like the automotive industry. Our entire set of living arrangements is an organized crime against Mother Earth. We need radical transformation, but you can't get there from here unless you take a viable path. This is the off-ramp I propose, in addition to all the other reasons that will be discussed for why we need to end prohibition and get rid of the drug cartels.
Okay. With that somewhat lengthy excerpt, thank you all for your patience on watching that. Again, this is the image that I'm showing there. By taking a pathway, what I call this off-ramp from the highway to hell, towards eradicating crime, starting with criminal drug cartels, then all forms of organized crime, and then finally organized crimes against Mother Earth, that third inflection point is going to be the most challenging for humanity. But because people don't follow movements, they follow leaders. As long as our leadership remains committed to the path toward a whole world, we can go through the transitional stages successfully. This will be a parallel evolution to the evolution of radical collective intelligence, which in turn will be parallel to the evolution of the utopia that we're seeking to create, the new modality for life on Earth. And in fact, I think it's a valid point to add that, and I'll shift over to the PowerPoint here, that this economic transformation represented by CCC, this new standard for a compassionate economy and compassionate companies, certified compassionate companies. So it's not just a marketing gimmick. There's an actual certificate. What are we certifying? That all profits are indeed going to eradicating hunger, that it's socially transformational and ecologically regenerative, right? Now, this becomes part of the Hungerless Games movement, right? To end world hunger, transform the economy to be compassionate, not just for the purpose of ending hunger, but also for the social transformation that needs to happen, the cultural transformation, and the ecological transformation. So we transform the economy to those companies, those firms that are here for not to hoard, but to be compassionate towards people and planet. So I think, and that, that'll just cause brands like Sato Hemp to just skyrocket in popularity. And there's sort of another thing I want to talk about, it's a new brand that I want to talk about. And I would just love to see your face on this, if that's at all convenient, Michael, because I just want to see your reaction, because you haven't heard about it yet. But that's totally up to you, no pressure. But, you know, since I'm out there on the street with my Darth Vader costume, you know, and now, you know, I've been doing the whole thing against criminal drug cartels for about a year now. Now I'm expanding it to organized crime, as I'm going to do in this localized effort. That'll hopefully draw the community out and the leadership of the community, you know, to say, whoa, what's going on here? And then I'll tell them the story without naming names, but saying, let's stand up and let's do the community cafe anyway, even though a criminal organization is threatening me. Let's do it anyway, right? And I think with that, will really, you know, are we going to stand up to organized crime or not? It really bifurcates it. You know, which side are you on, right? Which harkens to the, and now that I've said which side are you on, let me pull up the one where we talk about that. But I also want to show, let me just also cue up this other thing I want to show. But you see how it just like totally bifurcates it, right? And, you know, into, are we just going to let organized crime have their way and not feed the hungry? Or are we going to feed? I mean, it's just like, it is good versus evil. What better, you know, example do people need of pure good versus pure evil, right? So we lead with that. Okay, so now check this out. Because the brand Diego Pellicer has come under attack by the criminal drug cartels, right? And that has severely limited our ability to practically even do business. You know, and of course I went kind of underground for a while when the threats were the most severe, going back a few years ago. But what I'm actually going to do now is a brand which from its very inception will be built and designed to resist the criminal drug cartels and other forms of organized crime. And because the leader of the brand will be Darth Vader, right? Out there with my lightsaber and singing and dancing and all that. And because my hair has been growing out, one could call it a mullet, right? And since I'm kind of this weird hybrid, I'm part Hispanic and also descendant of Vikings. And so because what I've been doing with the whole Darth Vader thing and all that has been, you know, some people have called it, you know, you look like a gladiator taking on the criminal drug cartels. I've decided to launch a new brand of cannabis, a whole new brand of cannabis that will be Triple C along with Sato Hemp. It'll donate all of its profits to community cafes, to ending world hunger. And it will start focused on those communities that are oppressed by organized crime. So we're going to bring in community cafes to help point the exit door out to the criminal organizations in the area. Get out. We'll take it from here, right? And by meeting the basic human needs of the communities, food, shelter, medical care, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, because of this mullet that I've been sporting, right? And it keeps growing out. I said, you know what, why not launch a badass brand that stands for all of this? So the brand, Michael, the brand will be called Viking Mullet. Viking Mullet. It'll be a brand of cannabis. And the message is very clear. If you're going to smoke pot, and that's a big if, and I don't encourage any young person under the age of 30 practically, you know, to mess with this stuff. I didn't start smoking until I was in my 40s. And I do so responsibly. But so that's why I say if, and that's a big if. If you're young, just stay away from this stuff. But if you're, you know, an old dude like me, and, you know, you can do it responsibly and it's not going to be an issue for you. If you're going to smoke pot, make it Viking Mullet. Make it the brand that's standing up for ending hunger, ending organized crime, and helping catapult us down this off-ramp from the highway to hell to save as much of life on earth as we possibly can it doesn't hurt that MacGyver himself, with the famous MacGyver mullet, was a descendant of the Vikings. Let me just show some images of this whole mullet concept, just for the uninitiated. So there was this site. Can you see that mullets galore thing? There was this site, there was this website. It's kind of a, you know, just a joke site back in, I don't know, the 90s and early 2000s, called mulletsgalore.com. And it was all about mullets. Well, the site's been taken down. I guess they had too many people that got upset about it. But if you do a search on Google Images, you just type in mullets galore as one word, you see a bunch of the images that used to be on the site. And I just love this logo, Fear the Mullet. Isn't that just brilliant? Anyway, so Viking mullet will be, you know, we'll have kind of some of these undertones of, you know, warriors and, you know, I mean, you know, it's just this hilarious thing. I mean, the Vikings had mullets. So Viking mullet, standing up to organized crime. And then what we're really espousing, right, is, you know, this strategy, right? And then, you know, so, and now the world has already seen Darth Vader taking on criminal drug cartels. Soon we'll do this localized organized crime thing. But then there's also this other image I wanted to show. This is me at Stanford University as part of this Bay Area tour I did several weeks ago, where it says, abrupt climate change is like the Death Star, blasting Mother Earth with this high-powered laser of abrupt climate change, beginning to destroy, you know, destroying all life on Earth. Which side are you on, right? So the Viking mullet, you know, will be associated with me, with my Viking mullet, which will just keep growing by the day. So time is on our side, Michael. And, you know, we're taking on both. We're out with the bad, get rid of all these crimes, and in with the good. Let's feed people with community cafes. Let's participate in the Hungerless Games. Let's wear Sato hemp. And if you're going to smoke pot, make it Viking mullet, right? Simple as that. There's the story, right? There's the on-the-street activism between the Sierra Club, Professor Guy McPherson, taking down the drug cartels, and now taking down all forms of organized crime as we end hunger. Wow, there's on-the-street action. And again, the ending of the hunger with community cafes is food sourced from regenerative agriculture networks, using the principles of holistic land management. Again, I point to Alan Savory and the Savory Institute as examples of that. So now we've got both revolution and collective intelligence taking off at once, and a dialectic between the two. So the collective intelligence helps guides the actions within the realm of action and revolution, right? And then the realm of revolution and action helps get people's attention, gets people talking, gets people watching and listening and thinking, and a lot of those will join the collective intelligence. So there you have it. A beautiful symbiosis. Going on mute.
Bullet.
Viking mullet. Viking mullet.
Over bullet.
Pardon me?
Bullet over bullet.
Mullet over bullet. Yeah, mullets over bullets. Mullets, not bullets.
Bullets, not bullets.
But you need the folks with the mullets to stand up to organized crime at a local level. I mean, this.
I would just call it Mother's bullet.
Whose mullet?
Mother's.
Mother's mullet. But Mom doesn't have a mullet.
Mine does.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Michael. Viking mullet. Viking mullet. Viking mullet. Right? Viking mullet. This is the birth of a great brand. If you're gonna smoke pot, make it Viking mullet. And then
I'm sold.
All right,
it's got to be. It's got to be a dank sativa.
Oh well. Here's the thing. We'll have a whole family of varieties. You'll have a dank sativa for these really creative conversations, right? And then you'll also have, you know, a nice kind of evening couch lock indica for people who want to Chill out.
Uncle's mullet.
Uncle's mullet. Uncle's mullet versus, Jamin's mullet. Jamin's mullet might be the sativa or something like that, right? And maybe like, I don't know, the first 100 bags or something will include a little lock of my hair or something like that. I don't know.
Mary's mullet. Mary's
mullet, yeah, that can be kind of more the indica, kind of like have like a moon, nice smiling moon shape. Anyway. So no, there's lots of things that we can do with the multitude, and multitude for the multitudes, and we'll just, and then it just becomes this crazy on the street story, right? Because I'm standing up now to a criminal drug cartel that's operating in the state of Washington and a local criminal organization, standing up to both, saying screw you both. This will be the brand that takes down all of you.
Yeah, you're a martyr. Martyr is mullet.
Pardon me?
Yeah, you're a martyr. Martyr is mullet.
Martyr's mullet. Well, I don't actually want to be a martyr. But thank you for that, Michael. That was very kind of you. Thank you for putting that out there into the collective consciousness. But no, it's Viking mullet. Because if anyone,
what could be tough? What could be tougher?
What could be tougher than Viking mullet? Anyone messed with one of the Viking communities, the dudes with mullets would come out with their swords and spears, and clubs just immediately. And it would be a bloodbath. And they wouldn't stop until the enemy invaders were gone. Well, we've got this enemy tribe. Now we need the Viking mullet to stand up to it. And, half the state of Washington are descendants of Vikings. So there you have it. Viking mullet to the rescue. But you see, you get to enjoy it as a brand. You get to relate to it as a brand, kind of like Harley Davidson. Michael, I'm just going to ask you a simple yes or no question. Can I embrace and live the Harley Davidson brand without getting on a motorcycle?
No.
Yes, I can. The answer is yes. You buy a Harley Davidson t-shirt, right?
No way, Jamin. Come on.
Anyway.
You can't.
The answer is yes. And likewise with Viking mullet, we'll have Viking mullet shirts made by Sato Hemp, right? Those would be the coolest things around. In other words, you don't have to smoke weed to participate in the Viking mullet revolution, and 100% of the profits from those shirts will go to ending hunger, right? So I'll have shirts and caps, and then of course weed, right? And so there you have it, Viking mullet. There you have it. The birth
I prefer Michael's mullet. But
Michael's mullet. Okay, you can have a competing brand if you want to be the Pepsi on the market. But if you're Triple C, then you'll be a real contender. Michael's mullet. Michael's mullet. Anyway, the mullet revolution, the revolution of compassion. And with this, we really start to get people's attention. Like we have this serious local revolution.
See, I like Mary's mullet because it's like marijuana.
Yeah, Mary's mullet. I love it. Maybe for the indica or something. So we'll figure that out. But anyway, that's not bad actually. So Viking mullet, Mary's mullet, we'll launch a whole family of brands.
Mary, she's a very compassionate woman.
Of course she is. Of course she is. Mary's mullet. And that's got good alliteration. So
she's a mother figure. It's kind of like
Mary's mullet.
But in any case, I like where you're going with the mullet.
Good. So so it's mullets to the rescue. The family of brands, Mary's and Viking and Michael's and all that. It's mullets to the rescue. And it's a dank indica, but then there's the Jamenstein, right? That's the sativa. Jamin's mullet. Anyway, whatever it takes, we're going to put it out there. We're going to make it very personal, and we're going to make it. These are the brands that stood up to organized crime, and it's the mullet that is extirpating organized crime from the state of Washington, right?
Yeah, mullet's not bullets. Come on,
mullet's not bullets. We feed the masses. Those who want to smoke can smoke. And and then it creates this focal point. And what's at the heart of it And that's where we break out our grand strategy, right? And we show them, look, we're on this highway to hell. We need to urgently find this off ramp. Let's do it. Let's do it now. And here's how. Help us build the first community cafes in these communities that are oppressed by organized crime. Let's extirpate the organized crime, the criminal organizations from these communities.
Bullets not bullets, man.
Mullets not bullets. Mullets not bullets.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's brilliant because it's you're buying a quote unquote drug, right? But not from a cartel.
No.
On the contrary, it's legal, right? It's
That's it. It's the anti-drug cartel.
Straight up weed.
Yeah,
you can't buy it on the you cannot buy it on the street. You can't find it on the street.
But listen, let's seriously call it the anti-drug cartel drug. Let's call it a drug for once. It's the anti-cartel drug. The anti-drug cartel drug.
Yeah. Bullets not bullets, the anti-drug cartel drug.
Right.
Or the anti-cartel drug, yeah.
That's right. Exactly. And then there's some other stuff I wrote down in terms of like what our strategy is. Let me just pull up some of my notes. Like I came up with a couple of cool acronyms. Like, so, in terms of, abrupt climate change, what are we trying to do? Because, again, we're going to get all this.
It's a house of brands.
Yes, it's a house of brands. But in terms of preparing for abrupt climate change, see, we're getting all this pushback in the comments from people who say, oh, it's impossible to prevent. Look, we're not trying to prevent that which can't be prevented. OK, we're trying to prepare for climate change, PCC, and prevent that which can be prevented, PCP, as well as creating something new. And that needs a new acronym. But as far as climate change, prepare for climate change, PCC, and prevent that which can be prevented, PCP. Prevent that which can be prevented. And so, it's like, finally, we've got the beginnings of a strategy. Look, it's crazy. Yes, it's crazy. Do I put myself at risk? Yes, I put myself at risk. But it needs to be done. Therefore, let's do it. Let's break out the mullets, and make it happen. Oh my goodness.
Maid Marian's mullet.
Maiden Marian's mullet.
Maid Marian, yeah.
Maiden Marian's mullet, yeah. Well, shoot, Robin himself had a mullet. In fact, all the merry men had mullets. So exactly. It's time, mullets, unite. Mullets unite. It's time to bring back the mullet. In fact, let me go back to that Mullets Galore page. Mullets of the world, unite.
I like that one on the top right hand side there. Let's see. Yeah. As like kind of a logo.
Oh, the one that says "Fear the Mullet."
Yeah, either that one or the one in blue. Yeah, one of those one of those graphic ones, either the red one or the blue one below it. I guess the blue one is a photograph, but barely.
Oh,
anyway,
this one.
I like
this one.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But not that one. But I like the idea of having kind of an iconographic logo.
Yeah, Viking mullet. Let's come up with a badass Viking mullet logo, right? And that one that I showed, this one that we've been talking about, this is from mulletsgalore.com when the site was active. It got taken down. See, the mullets got targeted, and so the site went down. But it was just a hilarious site when it existed.
Yeah, it could be like, mullets, not bullets, and like 100% of the proceeds go towards fighting, criminal drug cartels or something like that.
Exactly. That's it. Or well, actually, to ending hunger. But you see, because if it was all about, you know, criminal drug cartels and mullets, you know, it's just, you know, where's the relief? But since we tie it directly into ending hunger, and ending hunger, we're standing up to organized crime by taking a stand about ending hunger, because it's this criminal organization that's trying to get us out or drain us of our resources, or both, or kill us, or whatever they're trying to do. And we take a stand. Organized crime out of blank, the town, the name of the city I'm not mentioning.
See, that's why I like something like Mary's Mullet or Mother's Mullet, because you know, the Vikings were notorious for pillaging.
Yeah, that's true.
And hoarding. I have a little bit of Viking blood myself in me, but anyway, it's the bullets over bullets theme that I think is going to carry the day.
Yeah, totally.
And the anti-drug cartel message, whether it goes to hunger or fighting drug cartels or whatever, giving people that like alternative, you know,
and then, you know, and then it becomes sort of like this gateway drug to the broader conversation of radical collective intelligence and radically transforming our entire modality of life on Earth, our entire culture, economy, everything, right? It becomes a gateway drug for that. A gateway drug for transformation.
Yeah, anyway. we could just call it gateway.
Gateway, the gateway mullet. Anyway, anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. The only one other thing I wanted to cover is that at the community cafes themselves, in addition, like we talked about, in addition to nourishing with good foods that are holistically raised and therefore good for Mother Earth as well, it's also a place of cultural transformation and participation in collective intelligence. So there'd be a video conferencing section or room, quiet room, if it would be ideal, adjacent to every community cafe. So people from the cafe, if they wanted to, it's a conversation.
It's kind of like a safe, you know, like shoot up zone. People can go in there and like smoke weed.
It's a safe radical collective intelligence zone. It's a safe radical collective intelligence. Yeah, and you know, maybe like what you suggested, but that would be a bit further down. But you know, but it's definitely going to be a safe zone for utopians, for solutionaries, for radical collective intelligence, for those of us who have, you know, who have what it takes to say, okay, I'm going to dedicate some time to this. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to participate in this birth of this new modality, right? Again, I made the parallel with the birth of language, right? The advent of language.
Yeah, we could call it like Red Radish, right? And then people would be like, you know, and then we could have like the site on there, like, you know, radish.org during the conversation.
Yeah, totally.
People take it home, get high, log in, you know, to the Radish account.
Tune in, turn on, you know, drop out, and plug into the Radish, right? So, wow, lots of cool stuff we can do with this, you know. But this gives us a bit of a battering ram into the marketplace, right?
But I do like tying it into cannabis, to prohibition.
To ending prohibition is a radical concept in itself. It gets to the root of so many of our problems. So yes, absolutely. All right. I'm getting a little echo. I'll just mute. Yeah, we can do the mute thing. But I think we've pretty much covered it. I mean, that's really what I wanted to cover. If there's more to discuss, I'm happy to stick around and discuss. But I think we've covered the gist, right? You know, we now have a platform, a bunch of platforms. Community Cafe is a platform. Triple C is a platform. Radical Collective Intelligence is a platform. You know, so we've got multiple platforms. And they're all pointing us in the same direction. Now we just need folks. We need people. We need you to join. So feel free to sign up on radish.org or send us a comment on radish.org. with your contact info if you want to be contacted and included. I want to put together an email list so we can at least, you know, everyone who wants to be part of these conversations going forward has an opportunity to do so. You know, this one I just wanted to have with Michael, so I didn't even make this public, that it was happening before it happened. But we're going to do a lot of these as just open sessions where anyone can join, because we need everyone in on the conversation. That's where we're at.
Yeah, but we could.
We totally could. We totally could. So anyway, so more on all that to come. Anything else you want to talk about, Michael? And take your time. There's no hurry. I'm not like, you know, rush to end it.
No. You know, when we stop recording, we can talk a little bit longer. But can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, just fine.
Yes,
Thank
just
you.
fine. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think we went broad and deep, and I love trying to, you know, this holistic approach, right? It's like there's any number, with the holistic approach, the beautiful thing is that you can go in any number of different directions, right? And come full circle, right? Because, you know, whether you're dealing with cannabis, prohibition, or, you know, repealing prohibition, whether you're talking about hunger, criminal drug cartels, or whatever, you're essentially contributing to the collective intelligence that is going to be used in ways that are unimaginable by the individual, right? You are a part of the collective. You know, I think that's a beautiful thing.
Totally.
As Trump might say.
Yeah. And we're uniting different movements. The movement to end prohibition, right? That's a radical movement. The movement to end organized crime, that's a radical movement. The movement to end hunger, that's a radical movement. The movement to transform our very modality of life, our culture, our economy, that's a radical movement. So all these are coming together. And, you know, and they're all intersecting at a very specific location that'll be announced in a matter of days. And with the mullet as this kind of trademark, this enduring trademark of the revolution of compassion that is willing to take a stand, that's willing to take a stand. And we're starting with that universally hated segment of society called criminal drug cartels. It's as simple as that. They suck. They suck. So we're extirpating them from society, starting with the great state of Washington, starting with Viking mullet and Mary's mullet, etc., and the mullet family of products. Wow. Wow. No, this is powerful stuff. This is really powerful stuff. It gets us back in the game in the cannabis industry, leapfrogging the drug cartels that have done so much harm to the legacy and memory of my great-grandfather, Diego Pellicer, in targeting our business. So with this, we, from the get-go, we leapfrog the cartels, and I think we'll get them on the run, and I don't think they'll stop running until they're gone. That's my prediction, because I think this is going to become a wildly popular topic because it brings to the table the taboo of cannabis. It's still a taboo to a large degree. And whoa, here's this guy promoting this brand of cannabis to bring down, to end hunger and extirpate the criminal drug cartels. I mean, what could be more controversial, thought-provoking, and exciting than that? You tell me.
I can't think of anything.
So let's get it on. I mean, it's the path is clear. So anyway, I'm really glad we did this sort of general, you know, exploration of these various topics. I say we make this part of the series, you know, Radish Singularity. What do you like that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, we just keep written down with it. Awesome. All right. Shall we stop recording?
Let's do it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. And thanks everyone for watching and for everyone who is a part of the revolution. I Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you so much.
Thank you.